Hi, this is Suzanne Hannafin with Acumen Executive Search, and we're here to have another conversation with Adi. This is our third conversation. And so, Adi, before we jump in, please introduce yourself.
Sure. So it's great to be here for the third time. So my name is Adi Klevit, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Business Success Consulting Group. And what we do is we specialize in process improvement, improving productivity, and helping businesses implement management systems to grow and scale.
Thanks, Adi. And the reason why we decided to do a third of our little series of CEO Insights is because when we were going through, I think that was the very first time, we thought about onboarding and how important onboarding is. You know, organizations and companies spend thousands and thousands of dollars on recruiting, interviewing, the time, the energy to find the right person. And then once they do, sometimes they slip and they don't do the right type of onboarding. And so you had shared with me kind of an outline of an onboarding process that you put together with a client. And at this point, Adi, I would love to kind of turn this over to you for you to share your screen, share kind of how you have put it together, because I thought, boy, others can sure learn from this. So go for it, Adi.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And this is a simple onboarding process that we put together. And basically, it walks you step by step on how to onboard. This is general onboarding. Usually what we do is we do a general onboarding. And then we also do a specific onboarding for a specific position. So if, let's say, we're onboarding a salesperson, so we're going to have the overall employee onboarding. They will go through, learn about the company, learn about the core values, the culture, etc. And then we're going to shift into onboarding for a specific position, which will be more of a, you can call it also a training checklist. So I'm going to show you what we put together for a general employee onboarding. So the first thing is they get oriented to the office, and then
I'm going to jump in, Adi.
yeah.
So it says orient to the office. Obviously, if people are going to the office, it's showing them where the break room is, where, you know, kind of walking through, oh, we have accounting back here in this corner, we have IT here.
That's true.
And probably doing it, you know, in person, introducing people as you go. How are your clients doing it via Zoom? If they're
That's a
not
very good point, because we do, this was actually a checklist that we did post pre-COVID, right? So when you are on Zoom, so what we do is we basically bring together, and you'll see at the bottom, it's more of the organizational chart and having meetings with each other. So that's where the introduction via Zoom comes in. What we've done with clients that are working remotely is still giving some orientation, but more of a giving the orientation to the different tools that we use in order to communicate. Just start with that as opposed to putting it, and I'll show you, it's more towards the middle of the list. It will be more at the top in terms of like, okay, so I know you can't go and see this is the accounting department, but let's say you're part of Slack. This is the Slack channel to communicate to the accounting department.
And we had one company that did this fantastic onboarding to where they actually scheduled 15-minute Zooms with the head of each department. So instead of physically being introduced and shaking hands, you had HR, the new employee, and all the heads coming in every 15 minutes and just doing that. Nice to meet you, welcome aboard, share something about the background. And that really took the answer of, oh, now I've got a name with a face and she's the one I need to talk to, or he's the one I need to talk to for this.
Right. Yes, I agree. And that's actually on our checklist as well, but it's towards the end in terms of set up the time for team introductions. So definitely when it is on Zoom, you have to schedule it. And I love the idea of the one after the other. Yeah, and a lot of times we also include in the checklist is to celebrate the arrival. And when people are working at the office, it's easy in terms of going out to lunch or in different times when it's okay to go together to a restaurant. So that will be way of celebrating. Now we have to come up with bright ideas of how to do it remotely. And what you brought up is a very good idea. And it can also be some kind of a figure out how to do that celebration. So maybe order lunch and get it delivered and everybody gets together on a Zoom call and celebrate the new arrival. That can be an idea as well. It's definitely something we have to be creative about.
Absolutely. So I made you jump ahead, but so I'll shut up and have you walk.
No, it's good. We're having, I love that idea. So then, we have to make sure that we are setting up the IT, and now more than ever, especially when it is remote, that's where we need to make sure that the new hire is on all the right communication lines, so we have the, whatever messenger system you're using, whether Teams or Slack or whatever it is, they're set up on that, on the project management, on all the tools. We actually had a whole discussion on it when we first had our interview in terms of productivity tools, but we have to make sure that the new hire is completely set up, phone system is set up, that they know how to communicate, how to reach, because they can walk into somebody's office if they're working from home, and that's important to have. So even if you are not working from home, you're still in your office right now, that's also important to set up the IT, make sure that everything is set up correctly. Then I really like welcome videos. I think that the CEO of the company welcoming the employees, explaining what the company is all about, what is the vision, what to expect working for the company, whatever it wants to communicate, whatever the CEO wants to communicate. I think it's really important to do that. And if you Google welcome videos to companies, you can find some of the Fortune 100 companies, what they do in order to welcome their employees. You can also see other examples of smaller companies, but I think that that personal welcome from the CEO, if you cannot do it in person, and that's one of the things, if you have a company and you're growing and scaling and hiring more people, you won't be able to always be there the first day. So, I do still think that, meeting in person is very important, but having that video sets the tone to the rest of the hiring and the onboarding procedure.
Yeah, and I'm thinking as a small business owner, for myself to put together a video, a welcome video that, again, coming from the leadership, really talking about the values and the reason why, and if there's a very strong culture to state it. And then you could probably even put it on your website under careers, what you're recruiting for. And again, it's using, one resource, one platform in many different applications. And I love that idea. I think it's fantastic.
I agree. And, my suggestion is also don't get paralyzed by it, because when sometimes you think about a video, so you think about all the production that goes around it and whatnot. So that's important as well, but just do it, in terms, it doesn't have to be perfect. And if you can hire a professional, for sure, to do that. But if you also want to do something in the meanwhile, use a phone and record yourself, but at least it's something that is there. So definitely recommend using video. And then, of course, we have to complete the paperwork. And then, in this example, this is a company that had a culture book. So definitely have the employee read the culture book and then explain about the culture, explain about the core values, because reading your core values and hearing it directly from the CEO are two different things, in terms of, like, you want to hear it, you want to hear the voice, you want to hear what's the tone behind it, what's important, what's not important, etc. So in this example, we're talking about a culture book. It can be broken down into making a video about your core values, in terms of making a video about your vision, your strategy for the year. So, you want a new team member to understand where you're going. You can make a video about the history of the company, where you came from. That can also be part of the welcome to the company. You can talk about management styles. What is your management style? What are the do's and don'ts as an employee in the company? How to become successful working in the company? It's like the more information that you give, and the more information you give it thought ahead of time, it's more structure for the employee, and it's better because they know what to expect. And sometimes, again, you might not be able to meet with every new employee on the first day and then repeat yourself every single time. So that way they can hear you, they can hear what's important. And then when you meet with them, it can be a few minutes just to get to know them and answer any questions, but they already will feel that connection because they saw you on the video.
No, I absolutely love this idea. And I've never thought about a culture book, but I think, as people are hiring again and driving and growing their business, hiring for the culture is so critical. And I think we all understand that. But I think the other critical piece, like you said, is to have the CEO, COO, whomever you choose to talk about your culture, be able to articulate that. I think that in itself is a very powerful tool to use. And then hopefully, it's tone at the top, no matter how big an organization is, that tone, what is acceptable, not acceptable, gets filtered all the way through. So
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And, and then of course the employee handbook. So it's good to put it on some kind of a platform, like here I put it on this platform, Suite Process, that you can use it as a checklist, and then you can actually, I know this is not a signature, you still have to sign, but it still gives them the opportunity to read it, to upload it here, like right here. If you want to read it, you can just click on it. You'll see the employee handbook, you can download it and print it, whatever you want to do with it, but you will have the opportunity for them to actually do that and read and attest that they did. And then we created here a video on the organizational chart. So you can actually see the video, and it explains either an accountability chart, an organizational chart, so you can see who does what and how all the departments relate to each other. And that also is a good orientation point when you're hiring somebody. So as you can see, it's the combination of writing, attachments, the attachments in terms of they read a book, and then also watching the videos, seeing, you can upload pictures here, whatever you want to do, but incorporate the different styles of learning, the different methods of learning, because some people are more visual, some people want to hear it, some people want to read and absorb the knowledge that way. So it's really important to incorporate everything. And then we move down here, so set up a time for team introductions. So that's very important to introduce to the team, to make sure that you learn who your teammates are, that you spend the time, as you said, even the 15 minutes, in terms of like what's important, what are the skills that you are bringing, the new employee, the new team member can talk about that. What is, what it will be the interaction, what is needed, so all of that is very important to establish. But if you have it in a checklist and it's being done, it's not being forgotten, and it can also be scheduled ahead of time. So let's say the different department heads, they know that the new employee is coming on Monday, so they are going to make time on their calendar. Or you can have somebody that can coordinate and make the time on the calendar to reach out and to talk to meet with a new team member.
Yeah, and I guess this is where I jumped ahead, like you said, to schedule it, especially with the department heads. And it's somebody also that is a director or manager of people, because they need to know what resources, who to reach out to, when to reach out to. And like what Adi was saying, a simple 15 minutes gets that, oh, I need to reach out to this because to solve this problem. And I love how easy and the checklist this is.
Oh, it's a great checklist, and you can actually, this is an electronic checklist. So what you can do is, let's say we're hiring Sue. So Sue is going to be, we can start a checklist for her, and then, let's say she got an introduction, and we check it off, and then the same thing here, we got it set up. And that's an example, a simplistic onboarding checklist. We definitely have more, we can add more steps to it, and we can add more attachments. Let's say they watch the video, they've done that, you complete all their paperwork, and this is done as well. They read a culture book, they download it, they can have a copy, and this is done. Let's say she read the employee handbook, and then she's signing her name right here. and this is done as well. We're going to watch the video, done, and we're doing the team introduction, and then we mark it as complete. So this is basically done. In this case, you know, it can be downloaded as a PDF, and it will have the timestamp and basically when it was done, with also your initials or your name, who did it. So you can take that and file in their personnel file, for instance. So electronically it can be filed as well. So that's why I like to use those different tools that are available to make it easy. So it's easy to use, it's easy to store, it's easy to print, etc.
Yeah, so it looks like you're on Suite Process. Is this the tool that you use for a lot of your, I want to say process flow charting, but also for the checklist? I love how interactive it can be.
Yeah, it's very interactive. I really like it. I use it a lot for my processes, you know, documenting the processes, the procedures, etc. So yeah, for instance, like right here, if you see those are like the core processes for a company. So let's say we want to look at sales. So we have the different, it's broken down. It's kind of like your manual, if you would, of the entire company, but just broken down, just electronically. And it's broken down to the different processes and procedures. So it's very, very, yeah, I like that tool.
Yeah, and I can see that, like, you take these departments that you've listed down here, HR, operations, fulfillment, what have you, and you can have this general onboarding that you have in the front, like the first half a day, and then the second goes into whether it's sales training or working with other fulfillment people. And again, it's looking at onboarding. It's not just an HR function. It should be a company function of all the different departments, again, welcoming that person and kind of helping them along. And, as you were going through this, I was thinking not only of we've seen what's worked and what's not, I'm sure you have too. So what advice do you have for companies on, how long should the onboarding process be? How long the training? Do you have any of those tips for people?
Of course, yes. So the first one is the onboarding of the general onboarding should be the same, and you should take a day and do that, like very thorough. Make sure that they actually read the culture book, that they meet with the different department heads. It also depends how big the company is, so it will take you longer, right? But you want to make sure that the person is completely oriented to the company. Then I will start with breaking down, we create checklists like that for every position to onboard them, right? So let's take, like you mentioned, the salesperson. So there should be already a checklist for the salesperson in terms of onboarding them. So the first thing before you do that, you have to really understand the role of a salesperson. So you have to have a role breakdown, like what does their role means, what are the duties and responsibilities. It's kind of like a job descriptions, but expanded in terms of like, those are the roles and responsibilities of the salesperson. This is what we expect them to do. And we also need to list the competencies in terms of like, what are the different things that they need to know and show that those competencies. Some of them will take maybe a few months to develop. Some of them will have to be shown within 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. So it's really important to actually figure out the different levels. I like the tier system or the level system in terms of like, if we take the salesperson and we can say, okay, so this is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. This is what are the competencies and what is the knowledge that has to be known or has to be demonstrated in order to jump from tier 1 to tier 2, from tier 2 to tier 3, etc. Right? So that way, your expectations are very well defined, very well explained for your new employee and also for yourself, so you know what to expect. And then you have to decide according to your culture or how you run the company, like how would you figure out that they're actually moving from step 1 to step 2. And it can be in terms of an assessment, a face-to-face assessment. It can be a written assessment. It can be demonstration of certain skills or certain products that they have to get. And a salesperson, it might be that they need to close 10 deals before they move from level 1 to level 2. They maybe close a certain type of customer and then they move into bigger customers. So you really have to define that. And it takes time to define that, but I'm definitely, I always tell my clients, you know, we have to spend time in the design phase in order to actually design that system, the training system, and then it will be, then you can implement it. But you have to, it has to be well thought, right? It can be just, oh, well, today we're going to decide you're going to train on that, and then tomorrow on something else. We want to have a plan, and a plan of advancement from one tier to another.
And I
And then
think,
what, yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I was just about to say, I think with COVID and all these crazy things in our life that are going on, we forget. And I'll give you a great example. You know, we're a small little company. There's 6 of us. And here I have a new recruiter who's been with us for 5 months. So 2 months pre-COVID,
Wow.
you know, and then the rest post-COVID. And it was so interesting. Last week I said, "Oh, well, what do you mean you're not doing this?" And I thought, "Ah, you know, that was my fault. I think I skipped a huge training piece of this because again, so there were so many moving pieces at first that you know, I forgot something. So again, I agree with you. I think taking the tiers, looking at how people do their job, and again, the training, once you've developed it, think about it, if you're scaling and growing, why keep recreating the wheel every time?
That's
Here's
exactly right.
yeah,
Yes. And that's when you define what the tiers are, then you create the content, right? That's where the content creation comes in. And that then when you have, let's say you want to train the salesperson on tier 1, you need to give them the textbook, right? And I look at what you see on the screen right now, that's your textbook, right? So you have, that's where all the information is. Those videos that we make, the standard operating procedures that we write, all of that is like the textbook or the manual, the playbook that they have. And it's accompanied by a checklist of, you learn this, this, and this to get from tier, to finish tier 1. Those are the competencies we want to see. Those are the measurements of success. And it's very well defined. And I can tell you also for my own company, you know, when I also hired somebody just before COVID, and it was so important to actually have everything documented, because they're not with you. You know, they can't just come into your office and ask you a question. It has to be, you know, you are leaving them to do their, or no matter how much you want to be in communication, you can be on a Zoom call with them the whole day. I mean, we probably are on Zoom calls with others throughout the day, but it's not constant. Hey, I just have a quick question. You know, you might be on a Zoom call, they can't reach you, or they Slack you, or they send you a message via Team, but you're on another call or doing something else. So it's really important to have this well documented. And it's setting expectations. It's just setting everyone for success when you have it, when the expectations are very clear of, if you finish all of this, you're going to move from tier 1 to tier 2. When you finish all of this, you're going to move from tier 2 to tier 3. And tier 1 can be, you can also align it with a compensation, you know, in terms of like, okay, so this is how much you're getting paid for tier 1. This is how much you're going to get paid for tier 2. Doesn't have to. I mean, I've seen companies do it either way, but there has to be some kind of a tangible, what does it mean to be tier 1? Like, what are the privileges? What are the benefits, right? So an employee would want to move from tier 1 to tier 2.
absolutely. And so that makes me think about being on Zoom all the time. You know, like you said, you can't possibly spend a day with somebody on Zoom. I guess you could, but reality is, you know, I think people are getting a little zoomed out. I know
Yeah.
I'm one of those, but also just on keeping track. So we have this one company that I absolutely love, and they're in the biotech space. And they pre-COVID would spend the first, I want to say, 3 or 4 weeks just having that person sit with the leaders of other departments. And this is not a small company. This is, you know, 100 plus employees. And they still felt that that was so important. And I need to reach back out to him and see, what are you guys doing now for onboarding? Because you can't spend 3 days with fulfillment. You can't spend 3 days with sales. You can't, you know, spend that physical time like you used to. What are you seeing out there? How are people maneuvering that cross functionality or that cross development?
I think they're doing it by actually documenting. I mean, honestly, that's what I see. I mean, at least that's what I see with companies that contact me, because they contact me because they need to document, right? So I see the need, or the perceived need of more. Yes, we do need to have it documented, because otherwise all this knowledge is going to get lost, right? So what we go through, the process that we go through is, let's say I'm working with them. I said, okay, so train me. And we are going to create the instruction manual that then we can give to somebody new. I mean, you still need to shadow, you still need to figure out, still need to be with them. So maybe they're doing a Zoom call with another employee and you're training how to be a manager of that department. So you have to be with them on the Zoom call, right? Or, you just basically everything that they do throughout the day, somehow you have to figure out, either participate in the Zoom call or have calls with them and explain to them what you're doing. So somehow we have to figure out in the digital space how they can shadow, but it won't work to just shadow without learning it outside of this electronic phone call, because you have to be able to read something beforehand so you are prepared, right? So we actually finished a big project for medical billing company, and the way that they used to train is basically the supervisor will work with one of the billers to show them how to do it, but it will take months to do that. So we actually documented it, created, like, for each procedure, we created a video, screenshots, explanation, etc. And now they can put in 5 days, they can actually get the person up to speed. And then, of course, there will be the supervisor has to be involved, because it's also the actual apprenticing on how to do it, which is extremely important. But you don't have to teach them, because they learned the course. So they got trained, and then they're basically being taught how to do it, right? I mean, if you think about somebody going to medical school, so first of all, they learn the theory, they get tested on it, they make sure they understand the theory. Then they have practicals of doing things, right? I mean, they have to they have to be taught how to do things. And then they actually go and do they actually work as a doctor under somebody else's supervision. So, I mean, I know I'm simplifying it, but if you take that concept into another business, that you can also apply that as well. So train somebody, work with them together on applying and doing and making sure that they're actually doing it, show it to them, have them do it, and then get them on with it, but have them be accessible to ask questions and guide them through.
Yeah, and I think you said this earlier on. Again, it's about setting those expectations and setting people up for success. Because, at the level that we recruit, which tends to be the director level and above, people never leave a job for money.
Right.
It's that they're not feeling that they're being valued, or that
Right.
they expect change. And what a great way to set those expectations up front, make sure everybody has this runway to start. And you're doing such a great service. Not only information's not getting lost, or we're recreating the wheel every time. This is really valuable. So thank you so much, Adi. So I'm going to ask the other way. Where have you seen the failures, and what are the warning signs for companies to say, okay, stop, let's reinvest and look at really using somebody like you to set up these processes, to set up what makes people call you?
Okay, so several things. One of them is, if you know that you need to hire and you want to expand and grow, and you feel like you can't hire because you don't know how you're going to onboard somebody or how you're going to train somebody. So if you have that fear and you're not moving forward, so that's a solution right here. Another one is retention. I mean, if you have basically employees leaving for one reason or another, as you said, they usually don't leave because of money. It's some form of dissatisfaction, or it's not working, or why not? So that's one way of fixing it. And it's also for yourself as a business owner, ask yourself, if you are going to take a 2-week vacation starting today with no preparation, what is the business going to look like when you come back? And if the answer is disorganized, it's going to collapse, there's going to be no business, I can't even conceive of it, I can't think of it, then you need to put some systems in place so it does not depend on one person's knowledge, but it depends on, but you have a system of the knowledge for the knowledge transfer.
No, what a great way of looking at it. So again, just to reiterate, if you're looking to grow and expand, if you are looking at turnover and retention, and then lastly, to capture all that knowledge and to systemize it and put it down there for then others to use. You know, I think that's a really interesting point, and a point it's a little off topic, but it's on that retention piece.
Right.
It's amazing how many times we've talked to companies and they said, oh, we lost this position, and there goes all this knowledge, this internal tribal knowledge. And again, what a great way of capturing it as you're going in your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So taking this again, my mind just keeps going forward of, you know, creating these videos, especially on culture. I mean, that could be used for all social media. That could be used for why people should apply for jobs for you, with you. And then also I would probably would want an executive team to take different pieces of it, because like what we said earlier, it's tone at the top. If
Absolutely.
your accounting and finance group saying the same thing your IT group is saying the same thing as supply chain, you know, it again reinforces that company culture and why you're there and what is acceptable, what's not acceptable. Adi, it looks like
Absolutely.
you're going to say something and add to that. Please do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. That's exactly the use of it. It's you have to use all the tools that are available, for sure.
Yeah, and I
And
love that.
Suzanne, just you know, I have a 1 o'clock with a big client, so
No. What
okay,
time is it? How are we
it's
doing?
1 o'clock.
Oh, okay, then let's just finish up here.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, so whether, again, you know the reasons why you should be calling a D, and we will have a D's information on at the end of this, and it's at the beginning. So reach out for anything, and I cannot thank you enough, Adi. I've learned something new every time we talk.
Thank you, Suzanne, and I always learn from you, so thank you for having me.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.